Thomas More's Utopia is widely recognized as the foundational text of the utopian genre. But what defines the works within this category? Scholar J.C. Davis provides a compelling perspective in his book Utopia and the Ideal Society. He suggests that utopias, unlike other visions of perfect worlds, do not idealize human beings or the natural environment. Instead, the characters in utopian stories can be virtuous or flawed, much like in reality, and nature can be bountiful or harsh, as it is in the real world. Utopias focus on perfecting social attitudes and frameworks, proposing that humans can create political systems to effectively manage vice and nature for the benefit of human well-being and joy. Whether this holds true remains an open question. Literary critic Northrop Frye offers two connected ideas about how utopias take shape in reality. He argues, firstly, that the notion of a confined utopia in a limited or isolated space is a hollow dream. Instead, utopia must involve a global overhaul of the entire societal structure, or it is meaningless. The mechanism for such a transformation is the focus of Frye's second idea. The true utopia, he states, is a personal aspiration, with the ordered society serving as its metaphor. For Frye, it seems, utopia will remain a mere fantasy until individuals cultivate utopian ideals within themselves through learning. When utopia begins, Thomas More, the character, is in the Netherlands, acting as an envoy dispatched by England's King Henry VIII to negotiate matters related to the English wool trade. More then journeys to Antwerp, where he settles and forms a friendship with Peter Giles, a trustworthy and educated local resident. One day, as More returns from church, he encounters Giles conversing with an elderly man named Raphael Hythloday. The trio walks to More's residence, where, in his garden, they engage in an extended discussion. We discover that Hythloday accompanied the renowned explorer Amerigo Vespucci on global voyages, even reaching the New World via Asia. It was in the New World that he encountered the Utopians, an island nation. Hythloday considers to have the most flawlessly structured society in existence. More and Giles are so captivated by Hythloday's tales that they urge him to serve as an advisor to a prince, but Hythloday is skeptical. Princes are too preoccupied with knighthood and warfare to value wisdom, and their advisors are often arrogant and dishonest. To illustrate his point, Hythloday recalls a dinner he attended years ago at the table of Cardinal John Morton in England. A lawyer there commended England's harsh punishment of thieves, but Hythloday argued that such penalties are excessive for the crime. He further contended that England should address the societal conditions that produce thieves rather than executing them. He specifically criticized the arrogance and avarice of nobles and landowners, which he sees as fostering idleness among the lower classes. This idleness, he claims, leads to poverty and suffering. Instead, Hythloday suggests that thieves be sentenced to labor, preserving their lives while benefiting society. Everyone at the table rejects his views, until Cardinal Morton endorses them, revealing the others as self-serving sycophants. After this anecdote, More insists that Hythloday could greatly serve his country as a prince's advisor. Hythloday disagrees, imagining himself advising a conquest-driven French king like Charles VIII or Louis VII. If he recommended focusing on internal affairs rather than war, the king would likely dismiss him. More admits the king would not appreciate such counsel. Hythloday adds that, as an advisor, he would be pressured to endorse flawed laws or lose his sanity. He believes no nation with private property or currency can be justly governed. Hythloday then launches into his description of utopia. At More's prompting, he vividly details the island. Its cities are nearly identical, thriving and well-planned, but Amerigo stands out as the capital due to its central position. The cornerstone of utopian society is collective ownership. Utopians share all resources, from land to homes to food and drink, and money is non-existent. Without private property, Hythloday explains, people prioritize their nation over personal pride, treating it like a prosperous family. Utopians live in patriarchal households with 10 to 16 members. All utopians engage in farming and at least one other trade, working at least 6 hours daily. Outside of work, meals, or sleep, they may spend their time freely. Utopia has few laws, and lawyers are prohibited for their overly clever legal manipulations. Adultery is the only crime with a fixed penalty. A first offense results in enslavement, and a second leads to death. Utopians are guided by elected officials called philosopers, who, along with higher-ranking arch-philosopers and the prince, regularly meet to address any issues in the Commonwealth, though these are rare. Safeguards prevent tyranny, corruption, and hasty decisions. For instance, magistrates discussing state matters outside official settings face execution. Yet, these leaders are fair and compassionate. Slavery, a notable feature of Utopia, is reserved for those who commit grave offenses or foreign criminals purchased from other nations, who labor in bondage. Utopians avoid war but, when necessary, employ mercenaries to minimize their own losses, using cunning tactics to resolve conflicts swiftly. In their moral philosophy, Utopians explore how to achieve happiness, embracing a hedonistic view that pleasure is paramount. They define virtue as living in harmony with nature, guided by reason, which also fosters reverence for the divine. The greatest joys come from practicing virtue and maintaining a clear conscience. Their religious beliefs include an immortal soul destined for divine happiness, with rewards for good deeds and punishment for evil in the afterlife. Though they worship varied deities, from the sun to historical heroes, all share the same temples. Atheism is frowned upon but permitted, as are certain heresies, but those who denounce other faiths or coerce conversions face exile or enslavement. Priests, chosen by secret ballot, offer spiritual guidance. After Hythloday finishes describing Utopia, More privately reflects that many of its laws and policies lack sound reasoning, particularly the abolition of private property and money. Still, he avoids offending Hythloday by openly disagreeing. While More cannot fully endorse Hythloday's views, he admits he wishes for some utopian elements to appear in European cities, but he considers such hopes impractical. Thomas More is both the historical author of Utopia, a real figure, and a character within the text, though the two are not identical. In the story, More visits Antwerp on a diplomatic mission for King Henry VIII, where he meets Peter Giles and Raphael Hythloday. His account of their garden conversation forms the book Utopia. More is portrayed as a curious, intelligent man devoted to family and public duty, favoring clear speech. He believes wise advisors can improve society, a view Hythloday disputes. After Hythloday's Utopia discourse, More finds many of its laws illogical, especially the rejection of property and money. Yet, he desires some utopian features for Europe, though he deems such aspirations unrealistic. The contrast between More, the author's creation of Utopia, and More, the character's critique of it, underscores the text's profound ambiguity. Raphael Hythloday is a fictional, wise, weathered Portuguese man with a long beard, whom More and Giles meet in Antwerp. Having traveled with the historical explorer Amerigo Vespucci, Hythloday is knowledgeable about foreign lands and peoples. He critiques European, particularly English, governance as irrational and pride-driven, while praising Utopia, where he lived for 5 years, as the most perfectly governed society. Despite his wisdom, Hythloday is pessimistic, believing pride, self-interest, and flattery render good counsel ineffective in royal courts. His ambiguous nature, possibly a peddler of nonsense or a divine messenger, as his name suggests, reflects the text's complexity. Peter Giles, both a historical figure and a character in Utopia, was a student of Erasmus and Antwerp's chief secretary. Introduced to More by Erasmus, Giles is depicted as an honest, learned, kind, and virtuous Antwerp citizen. His cheerful conversation eases More's homesickness, and he introduces More to Hythloday. Though he speaks little, Giles embodies Renaissance humanism, which More admired, valuing classical literature and rhetoric to promote virtue and civic ethics. Cardinal John Morton, a historical and fictional figure, appears as the virtuous, prudent Archbishop and Cardinal of Canterbury and Lord Chancellor of England. More, who served as a page in Morton's household as a boy, deeply respects him. In Utopia's Book 1, Hythloday recounts a discussion at Morton's table about English laws, revealing Morton's eloquence and open-mindedness, contrasted with the flattery of his companions, highlighting how private interests infiltrate governance. At Cardinal Morton's table, a lawyer lauds England's severe punishment of thieves, believing it deters crime. Hythloday refutes him, but the lawyer responds pompously until silenced by Morton. He later dismisses Hythloday's arguments, supported by all but Morton, representing how pride and bias deafen people to reason. Another figure at Morton's table, the Joker, attempts wit, succeeding sporadically. He jests that beggars should be monks or nuns and calls friars vagabonds. Morton accepts the first quip playfully, but others take it seriously, showing their lack of discernment. The Joker's taunt angers the friar, and Morton eventually dismisses him to end the dispute. Also at Morton's table, the friar is incensed by the Joker's mockery, threatening excommunication. This petty, hostile exchange contrasts with Utopia's cooperative relationships, highlighting European dysfunction. Utopus, the fictional founder of Utopia, lived 1,760 years before Hythloday's account. He established Utopia's laws and policies and ordered its separation from the mainland, creating an island. Utopus also tended Utopia's gardens, a cherished activity, symbolizing the nation's harmony with nature. Thomas More penned Utopia during the Age of Discovery, when European sea voyages expanded global knowledge. These explorations fueled beliefs in human progress and perfectibility, themes More explores. Utopia parodies the era's popular travel narratives, which often featured thrilling tales of sea monsters and hostile natives, while presenting a rationally organized society. Raphael Hythloday, the wise traveler, shares intellectual insights about the utopians, a practical, virtuous people who optimize human health and happiness, rather than recounting perilous adventures. More suggests that true monsters, proud European leaders who foster idleness, punish harshly, value gold, and wage unjust wars, are closer to home. Finding a society like Utopia, governed by just laws, is far rarer. Despite its earnest call for good governance, Utopia's ambiguities challenge the feasibility of such a society. The term utopia, coined by More, evokes utopia but means nowhere. How, then, did Hythloday visit a non-existent place? Can flawed humans build a paradise akin to the biblical Eden? The New World, where Utopia is set, was seen as both a real place and a mythical Eden, deepening the text's ambiguity. Utopia's capital, Amerigo, mirrors More's London in layout, making Utopia eerily familiar yet distant. This suggests that while Utopia is nowhere, its potential exists everywhere, accessible through a philosophical journey guided by reason and virtue, as embodied by Hythloday, who resembles both Ulysses and Plato. Utopia's two books contrast flawed reality with an ideal vision. Book 1, often called the Dialogue of Council, critiques European and English governance under Henry VIII, who More served and who later executed him. Book 2, The Discourse on Utopia, describes Utopia's ideal system. The text questions whether understanding ideal governance aids practical rule or if imagining good governance is even possible. Book 1 examines bad governance through Hythloday's critique of European practices, starting with the excessive execution of thieves. He argues this breeds crime, as poverty and idleness, fueled by pride, push men to theft or soldiery in vain wars. Landowners and clergy exacerbate this by converting farmland to sheep pastures, leaving commoners destitute. Pride and idleness, unchecked, corrupt society, worsened by short-sighted leaders and flatterers who deepen problems they aim to solve. Book 2 reveals Utopia's core principle, the abolition of private property, as in Plato's Republic or monastic systems. Utopians share all resources, land, homes, food, wine, and reject money, even scorning gold. This eliminates pride, fostering a nation like a thriving household, says Hythloday. He explains that in property-based societies, like feudal England, wealth concentrates among the greedy, leaving others in poverty. Utopia's equality ensures abundance for all, but everyone able must work, at least 6 hours daily, in farming or crafts like clothworking or carpentry. No one is idle, not servants, women, priests, landowners, or beggars. All learn farming and serve 2-year rural stints, ensuring agricultural resilience. Magistrates, called cyphergrants or villagers, elected by citizens, ensure diligence, working themselves to inspire others. Utopia has two social classes: freemen and bondmen, who toil harder for serious crimes or as purchased foreign convicts. Slavery, though shocking, aligns with Utopia's anti-idleness ethos. Rather than execute thieves, they labor for the public good, reflecting Utopia's practical approach to human flaws, yet complicating its utopian status. In Utopia, More questions whether people will work without personal gain, given the lack of private property. Hythloday explains that Utopia's design ensures citizens work zealously for the public good. Magistrates focus on maintaining diligence, and incentives like housing, food, healthcare, and peace motivate labor. Free time must be spent virtuously, and idleness is so rare that punishments are unmentioned, suggesting Utopia's structure prevents it. Utopians receive rigorous education in virtue ethics and civic ethics, inspired by Plato, Aristotle, and Stoics. Virtue means following reason, with the mind's highest pleasure in doing right, though bodily pleasures like wine or music are enjoyed if they don't impede greater ones. Unlike More, a self-flagellator, Utopians avoid pain for its own sake, seeking happiness through honest pleasures, primarily virtue. Religion unites Utopians for the public good. They worship diverse gods in shared temples, agreeing on a supreme divine nature. Religious freedom is granted unless beliefs demean humanity or reject faith entirely, as Utopians tie their philosophy to religion. The soul is immortal, good deeds are rewarded, and evil is punished in the afterlife. They believe the irreligious mock faith or break laws, so virtue and religion drive service to the commonwealth. Utopia juxtaposes ideals against reality. After Hythloday's account, More wishes for utopian features in Europe but sees such hopes as unrealistic. In Book 1, he optimistically suggests Hythloday advise a prince, believing wise counsel or philosopher kings could improve society. Hythloday doubts this, arguing philosophy is ignored in corrupt courts, where good advisors mitigate evil at best or are corrupted. More concedes that universal goodness is needed for ideal governance, unlikely for centuries. Ironically, Utopians are more practical than their philosopher-creator. They wear simple uniforms to reduce labor, value useful iron over gold, and legalize euthanasia for the incurably ill to ease suffering and conserve resources. In war, they use mercenaries to spare citizens, even hoping some die to reduce costs, revealing a ruthless pragmatism. More's plain style, advocated in a letter to Giles, reflects this practicality, favoring truth over ornate rhetoric. Utopia's ambiguity makes it a slippery text, with authorial intent elusive. It raises unresolved questions. Can utopia exist on Earth? If not, why imagine it, especially when kings ignore philosophy? Is utopia nurturing or oppressive? Hythloday's name, peddler of nonsense yet linked to the angel Raphael, heightens this ambiguity. More's life clashes with utopia. A lawyer, banned in Utopia, and a Catholic who persecuted Protestants, unlike Utopia's tolerance. The text itself seems inconsistent. Critic Stephen Greenblatt notes the 6-hour workday may span from dawn to dusk. More, the character, even questions Utopia's laws as poorly reasoned. These ambiguities might suggest Utopia is a literary jest, hard to grasp. Yet, they highlight the challenges of realizing Utopia's potential, urging readers to philosophically examine issues themselves, the first step toward utopia. The garden and island are linked symbols in Utopia. The garden signifies human effort harmonizing with nature and evokes paradise, like Eden before the fall. Hythloday discusses utopia in More's Antwerp garden, suggesting a temporary return to Eden through learning and virtue. Utopians, following utopias, cherish gardening, aligning them closer to paradise than warlike Europeans. Utopia's New World setting, tied to Eden myths, reinforces this. The island symbolizes Utopia's isolation from other societies and history's violence, detached like a philosopher preserving virtue. Utopia will reconnect with the world only when it can become universal, as Eden will bloom again when it can flourish everywhere. Gold in Utopia symbolizes human pride and dominance. In Europe, the rich flaunt it, thieves and princes exploit for it, and nations fight over it, despite its uselessness. Utopians, with ample gold, despise it, using it to chain slaves, shaming them as Europeans enslave themselves to gold lust. More portrays gold as idle and useless, marking societies that value it as corrupt. Hythloday blames private property for fueling greed, but Utopia's communal system eliminates the need for such vanities, ensuring material and spiritual sufficiency.